Welcome back, folks, to our Friday WP-Tonic Roundtable show. This is episode 270. The episodes are flying past, still, aren't they? And this is our episode for February the 23rd of 2018, and the year is flying. We got a small panel, but a very intelligent panel dedicated to providing entertainment to you, our beloved listeners. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name's John Locke, and I do SEO for manufacturers. There you go.
It. There we go. And we got Chris. Like to introduce yourself, Chris?
My name's Chris Badgett, and I'm the co-founder of Lifter LMS, which is a WordPress course system for your website. And I'm also the host of a podcast for course creators and membership site builders called LMS Cast.
It's an excellent podcast. Go and listen to it. And your background is maturing, isn't it? If you're watching this, folks, we always have a little joke with Chris with his building projects.
Yeah,
it does seem to be progressing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I got some paint up. This is actually our brand colors. There's blue here, and got some more whiteboards up.
There we go. It's progressing. The empire is building. And I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We are a WordPress support service company with an emphasis of learning management systems and membership websites. So let's start our conversation off, beloved panel. And hopefully some other panelists will be joining us during the discussion. They're always late, but they're always welcome. Let's start off with a story in TechCrunch, which one of our other panelists managed to find. Sudden death of the website. What did you think of this one, John?
Well, I thought the author. Okay, so to put it, give a little background. It looks like the author has a background in e-commerce and in chatbots. It looks like they were a pioneer. Basically, I feel like this article took a deliberately contrarian position in saying that. Basically trying to translate stores into e-commerce stores. There's something lost in translation, and customer service is bad, and chat bots are kind of taking over. It just seems like a position that he took just to kind of be controversial for the sake of being controversial, because he ends this article by saying, now every almost website looks the same and performs poorly. Almost every website from Gucci to the Gap offers the same experience. And, okay. But then he says, like, we're going to see in 2018, you're going to see the first major brand shut down its website. I don't see that. I just think that's, it's just saying something for the sake of being controversial. The last paragraph is, when the first website ends, the dominoes will fall fast. Okay, all right.
Yeah, the Russian front will cease. Well, when I first read it, I thought, oh, this is a heap of crap. This is this is link bait at its best. And then I had a thought, let's leave it and have another think about it. And I think it's got some minor points, but I've come to the conclusion that fundamentally it probably is crap, the article. But there we go. What did you think, Chris?
I'm actually really big on conversational marketing being the future. And as an example, one of the biggest proponents of conversational marketing is David Cancel over at Drift. I attended his conference called Hypergrowth last year in Boston, which was a great experience. And I really learned about conversational marketing. And just like, I think it is important to follow the intentions of the author. And if this person runs LivePerson, which is a chat system or a bot system, they're going to promote it. But I'm always a big believer when we forge into the future, yes, certain things will die off. But what's more common is that we transcend and include what came before, not to necessarily cull away what came before. And what I mean by that is there's always going to be a place for the website. And it's very common in marketing to create an enemy, whether that's the website or the old way of doing things for, polarization, clickbait, catchy headlines, and all that. But I think a more mature approach would be to just focus on what conversational marketing is and how people can integrate it with bots, with live calls, with account-based marketing. This is part of the future of doing things that don't scale, but also leveraging technology and AI to get the conversation back in sales. So if you really want to learn sales for e-commerce or anything, a part of that training, it's really important to study classic sales techniques from people who used to sell face-to-face. Like go watch the movie, what's it called? Glengarry Glen Ross or something. That's a classic sales movie, and you'll learn old school salesmanship, which is very valuable still in the modern age. But the old school sales was conversational marketing. This isn't a new idea. It's an old idea that's coming back into style.
I think that's fascinating. And you're so right, Chris, that it's applying very established principles, but just using technology to promote or use those principles in a slightly different way, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. He could have, because I agree with him on it's been a reaction, as web design development matured, site, where the navigation should be, if you're having a sidebar, where that sidebar should be, the footer, you have seen a bit of, I'm struggling for the right word here, a kind of unified look, which you see on a lot of websites, don't you? But that might change at any time, mightn't it? What do you think, John?
Yeah, there's very much it's very much like a repeated template that you see in websites. And I think when I first started doing web design, there was still like a lot of creativity, but it seems now that there is very much a pattern of, you got your nav bar at the top, you got a big hero image with a couple big bold words in the middle, maybe a call to action button, and then next section maybe some words, and then like 3 columns of pictures plus text, and it is kind of the same all the way around, and you can look around and see people pointing this out. And I think in large part this came about because of WordPress templates, in themes that you see out there that kind of pre-package that. Will we see a resurgence of creativity in the web? I think with browsers supporting things like CSS grid, regions, and shapes, I think that you're going to see some places start to push the envelope with that. But I think in the end, I mean, really, you want to aim for an ROI, and people go with what works. And I think at some point, that'll be challenged, those kind of existing patterns.
Yeah, before I go over to Chris, I think you're partially right about WordPress themes, but I also think, I'm only surmising this, I haven't really studied. I also think conversion analytics also drove that to some extent. I think especially on sites that got a budget and a team, they look at competitors, they look at conversion trends, what is said that will convert, and they copy. And for understandable reasons, if its purpose is to convert, which in some ways all websites are about conversion, aren't they? Almost all. Especially in the business sector, there's a tendency, if it's driven by conversion, you're going to end up with a very similar look, maybe. I don't know, I'm driven. Chris, can you save me?
I just want to say, I think that as with any innovation, over time, it gets saturated and it's no longer an innovation. It becomes just part of the majority or the best practice way of doing things. So in the early days of let's say, information marketing or building courses or collecting opt-ins or doing forms. These things, when they're innovative, a lot of the results get, very skewed and go to very few. Like, think about the first people who released premium WordPress themes. Now it's a completely saturated market with best practices in place. I don't think the website will ever go away. I think it's important to integrate best practices, but we should always be innovating on top of that. So if we're designing for mobile with a big hero image, a key headline, and like you say, like staying with conversion, that is the main goal. And conversion could just be getting an idea across. It's not always about making money. That's the main function of the website for anybody anywhere in the world, to be able to convert on something, to be able to find it and convert on something. And I just don't see that going away.
No, but yeah. Yeah, I think it was kind of link bait, but it did make you think a bit. But I think your synopsis really, Chris, at the beginning of this conversation really was fantastic. And so I think also, just to end up, I also think this was driven to some degree with the debate of speech search, having Amazon in your house or having Google in your kitchen and speaking your search requirements. That, that seems to be growing fast, and when that will reach a plateau, nobody knows really. So I think that's partly also driving this. So on to a kind of not quite linked. It's an article with a title on AMP for email. What did you think of this one, John?
Unmute. Oh, so the author of this one, he's pretty much like what I'm seeing a lot of people, especially among the web standards community, starting to kind of, be leery of AMP, because it is basically trying to create like a whole new way of building sites, and AMP itself basically as replacing the traditional HTML, CSS, and JavaScript trinity that we've been using since the dawn of the web. And I think the author in this case, he has some fears that Google will become another walled garden, similar to what we saw in the early days of the web with AOL, but through AMP and AMP for email.
Yeah, Chris, what do you think Google's really up to with all this?
I think with Google or Facebook or whoever the behemoth, Amazon, that we're talking about, it is in their best interest to grow their business, and they're going for like total domination.
Total domination.
That being said, I do think they have a soul, or
Do you think so, really, Chris? I'm having my doubts, really. The Death Star. Launch the Death Star.
I think they can. They are trying to innovate, and if they want total domination, they value, which they do. It's not to be able to buy anything anywhere, find information, or connect with anybody in the world like these big companies do. But I'll go back to my original point about transcending and including. So if they're going to introduce something that transcends HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I think the author makes a good point that it goes against web standards, and they're creating this whole new thing and just throwing out the old, which there are times where that makes sense. I'm just not sure that this is that time, but my biggest concern is the fact that it would be proprietary and attached to one company. That's against the web, the open web that we know and love in general.
I'm totally against this idea. When it was explained to me, and I thought, come off it, Google, just come off it. And then when I heard WordPress was getting in bed with with them a little bit, I thought to myself, oh my God, I thought to myself, why are they doing that? But obviously that's the kind of naive part of me saying it. I know totally why they're doing it completely. But that's maybe the too cynical part of me. But, I do wonder if there is any heart in the death center of Google's headquarters, actually, Chris. Is there any human consciousness left, or is it all artificial intelligence now, Chris?
I think there's good people who work there, but sometimes, just like we've seen in tax structures and legal structures, the corporation does kind of become its own identity and serves itself. So yeah, but it's a combination of that global domination and a bunch of smart people working on interesting problems.
Maybe artificial intelligence has developed without us noticing. Maybe it's out there already, Chris.
Maybe we're in a simulation right now.
Oh, I've always been in a simulation. There we go. I think I'll go on to the next story. I don't think we can say too much about it because I just think it's just godforsakenly awful. But other people might have a different view, but I'm just going to give it honest. On to another story. How to show your web design clients you care about their return on investment. What did you think of this one, John?
So this one comes to us from Caldera Forums, and I thought this is an excellent article. And especially right now, I think in the WordPress community, and also just outside of WordPress, in the web design and web development community, there is a lot of focus on tools. But really, the tools are a means to an end. Your clients are paying you the big bucks to get them some kind of ROI. What this article really did is kind of spell out in a lot of ways that, and for what it's worth, Caldera Forums, they create a very popular contact forum for WordPress. But basically they're spelling out like the ROI is getting like qualified leads. And they use the example of a mortgage company. They're showing like for, so many like qualified leads that adds up to so much revenue for the company. That's what the clients really care about, not that the site wins design awards or what have you. And another thing that they do is they kind of spell out, you can set up conversion tracking in Google Analytics as a way to quantify the percentage of leads that you're getting through your contact form and express that in a dollar amount that it's worth to them. This is a good weapon shouldn't say weapon, but this is a good tool, a way to show your clients like, hey, you're getting a return on your investment in this website, and here's how.
Yeah, what did you think, Chris?
I thought it was a great article. I think like our other conversation here, conversion isn't just about making the sale. And, if we go back to old school sales techniques of conversation, we do that online a lot through forums. And so having that conversation happen is an important conversion metric. And I really like this. I think that I was just thinking the other day, like about content I could write. And one of the ideas that I like doing is making suggestions, like products people could build on top of Lifter LMS, because I can see the market demand. One of the other ones I like doing is courses that somebody should create. I think that Google Analytics, there's a big opportunity for somebody to make it so much easier and simpler to get set up with these goals like Caldera is talking about with these form conversion tracking. And I think that's really cool. For example, like Syed Balki over at Opt-in Monster, they started doing this thing where the opt-in forms, I use that over at lifterlms.com for different lead magnets and different things. But I now get an email every week that shows which are my top converting forms, meaning just form submission, what's working, so I can really see like, oh, this one's really working well. This one's not doing that much. But before I started getting those emails, I just kind of had I was more focused on e-commerce analytics and not thinking about it. I just thought all my stuff was doing about the same. And then I realized, no, there's a lot of detail here. I should be looking at this and focusing on it. And I can get a much better ROI, like the article promises, by focusing on what's working and fixing what's not working or deleting the clutter. So I really like where this is going. And I think Caldera did a great job writing an in-depth article about this issue.
Yeah, I think it kind of touched a lot of things, and I also agree that it was a great article, really, because it made you start to think. And this should be the main reason why you're hiring an experienced web designer and developer or agency, really, is that, yeah, some of the tools in the near future might be becoming a little bit easier to develop something that is non-damaging to your brand and to your business. But on the other hand, I think it's becoming more and more crucial to have a real understanding of what really converts, what doesn't, and what making sense of the data that comes your way, and really utilizing that data in design and development that leads to a real outcome. And as long as you can show you with some of your clients, you've got some real outcomes, you're always going to be in demand. What do you reckon, John?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that's it. You hit the nail on the head. If you can show the ROI, show me the ROI, then you're always going to be in demand.
Show me the cash. Show me the cash.
Yep.
Right.
I just want to add real quick that I think the results, some people, I've heard there's a guy, Adam Urbanski, who calls it the results revolution. That's the future. Like, I think it would be very refreshing for most small to medium business owners to go out and hire somebody to build them a great looking, working new website, and then have this professional web designer come at them. Well, like, okay, yeah, we can make it look like this. We can make it look pretty. We can make it fulfill these business functions. But by the way, I'm also concerned about your ROI as a business owner. Here's how we can track and set this up to identify what's working well in your business, for these conversions. By the way, this is what conversion is all about. I mean, it's a total over delivering of the web design promise that I think would make it a lot easier to build a strong reputation as a web designer or developer or agency when the client, almost by surprise, realizes how much you care and have been thinking about their potential results. I think it can create a huge advantage for a web agency or freelancer to differentiate themselves.
I want to add to that before I know that Jonathan wants to go to break and do ad read, but I want to build on that as well, because what you're saying is very true. There's a lot of agencies and freelancers. They kind of decide out, and it's like, okay, job done, game over. And you're not tracking like what's happening. You're not keeping in touch with your client. You're just on to the next one. And that's why people get bitter. Like later, they think they dropped a lot of money and they don't know if they got a return because no one's helping them, keep track of that.
Yeah, it's true. And you read my mind as well, John. Get top notch for that. So we're going to go for a break. Before we go for a break, I want to tell you about our sponsor of this episode of the Friday WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. And that's Intelligence WP. And what is Intelligence WP? It's a plugin that helps you with the beast, which is Google Analytics. And it puts it on steroids, what it means the data that you can get in to the desk, into your WordPress in graph form. It can show you all sorts of things and you can measure all sorts of things. And it's a pretty cool product. And we'll have a link on the show notes, or you can go directly to the WP, the Intelligence WP website. And it's not crippled. You can download it. They have different packages which are around training, which shows you how to get the data from Google Analytics. but it's a pretty fab product. And maybe you can Twitter them as well and say you heard about them on WP-Tonic. That would be great as well. We're going to go for our break, folks. When we come back, we're going to continue this discussion. We've got a small panel today, but a very insightful panel, and I've enjoyed the discussion already. Be back in a few moments. We're coming back. We've discussed the Death Star, which is Google, world domination, death to all competitors. Oh my God, I'm finished. All right, Chris. I can hear the AI, which is Google. They've marked me for destruction already, haven't they, Chris? There we go. He's coughing. All right. On to the next story. Reconsider blogging on Medium if you care about SEO. What do you reckon on this one, John?
Okay, we talked about this before we went on air, and I definitely have thoughts on this. So, okay, there's a few things about this. The author, one of their main points is that Medium has no follow links by default. And if you're unfamiliar with what that is, basically with SEO, like when you're doing link building, you generally want follow links because they pass the page equity from the page that's linking out to your site. So basically, it's like a vote. No follow links are generally used when it's a sponsored link or a paid link. And they basically don't pass that link equity. But what I think is that it's a little short-sighted in this fact. Medium is a channel for building your brand, just like YouTube, just like Facebook. You all want to, you always want to be sending it back to the mothership, which is your website. But all these other channels, like social channels, Instagram, whatever, Product Hunt, inbound.org, these and all your guest posting places, those are all spokes in the wheel that help build your brand. And honestly, where SEO is going is that you want to have the most memorable brand. You want people to be searching for you by your brand name, by your company name. And Medium's a way to do that. The other part of this that I think is a little short-sighted is that you want to be driving traffic to your site, and Medium is a way to do that. The whole goal of SEO isn't just to rank, but it's to actually drive traffic to your site. Google sees the traffic that comes to your site. If you've got Google Analytics on your site, they know the metrics. They know that people are coming there. And the sites that are more popular, that are getting traffic driven to them, are going to, over time get a bump because Google sees that they're popular. Those that have are going to get more, and those that don't have are going to get less. So, while I agree with, in principle, it's better to get follow links than no follow links, there's a bigger picture because in a lot of verticals, marketing, but any of them, in manufacturing, I build a lot of no follow links, but they're in places where those companies need to be if they're going to drive traffic and they're going to get sales. And believe it or not, no follow links do play a part in SEO. So that's my 2 cents.
What do you think, Chris?
I think that was really well said, what John was saying there. With SEO, this article is almost, I would say, dangerous to a non-SEO professional because it makes it look like this one small piece in the jigsaw puzzle is like mission critical. To what John says, the no-follow link, well, yeah, you may not get rewarded as much from a no-follow link, but what if that brought a new visitor that later opts into your email list or, starts doing other things that does matter more? I think we have to look at the forest for the trees. And I also think it's really important that businesses, get outside of the building and publish content in other places. Yeah, I'm a huge WordPress fan. I love owning the platform and owning my blog. Whenever we do a product launch, we put a post on Medium. I don't care about it from an SEO perspective. It's just part of our checklist of 200 things we do when we launch a product and have something new to talk about. I think the main thing here is SEO is a puzzle. If we go back to the mothership of AI, Google, there's really, you can't outsmart Google. So what I mean by that is the algorithm that they use for SEO is complex. And to zero in on this one piece of the jigsaw puzzle and getting really focused on it and deciding not to post content on a platform that you don't own that potentially has no follow links, I think it's just missing the bigger picture. I do think it's important to figure out your SEO strategy, but the very fact that you are creating content is already going to give you a huge leg up. I think a lot of people get into the SEO conversation thinking they're going to find a shortcut and then they don't have to do the work. But if you're publishing content, you should be doing it on your own platform, but I think you should also be doing it in lots of other places too.
Yeah, I think both of you put fantastic comments. So many people are looking for that silver bullet when it comes to SEO, that little edge, that one thing that will lead. And yeah, I agree with you, Chris. This is a bit of a dangerous article on reflection after what you and John have said, because it gives, it's right in what it says, but it's wrong in the bigger picture, isn't it? That's the problem with it, and you get a lot of people reading that and they just say, I'm not using Medium anymore. They don't understand why they should be using Medium, do they? That's the whole problem with the article, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Naughty. I'll go to reporting to the Google. There we are.
I think we're uncovering a trend in these stories today about being very polarizing or taking a stand on this small issue and not acknowledging the bigger picture. It might help get clicks, but that's what makes it dangerous.
Well, I was listening to a podcast, Sam Harris, Waking Up, and he had a guest, and Ferguson. I was going to say he was a historian. I've got real views about Ferguson, but I'm not going to bore the listeners by expressing them. But what they were talking about was the election and how Facebook and blah, blah, blah. And they were talking about also how social media, we're all going to have a discussion. And he linked it to the printing press. And when the printing press really got established, it led to a much larger discussion, but that discussion led to the 100-Year War in Europe. It was one of the factors that led to it. So having a load of really angry people and having a really great discussion doesn't lead to great things a lot of the time, but it just made me think. That was off on the tangent, wasn't it? But there we go. Let's get back to this. I'll throw you this one, historic yearly trends, the usage content management systems for websites. And it's not the most attractive page, is it? But it is from w3text.com. There we go. But I'm still, the reason I threw it in is, it's still quite amazing the percentage of sites that seem to not to be using any content management system. Secondly, like Squarespace, Wix, they're seen, Shopify, they're seen as real kind of the real underlying competitors to maybe WordPress. But they, in percentage terms, they're still quite small, aren't they, by the look of this data? What about you, Chris? What about you starting off? What did you think of that? No?
I think this is interesting because, I think this is really interesting because I was listening to a podcast actually between Josh Pickford and the guy I referenced earlier, David Cancel, the founder of Drift. And they were talking about how when companies go after the middle market, which is other innovators and tech people like the three of us on this call, it's a very different market. And so it's a big mistake to do a startup that sells to other startups. The big thing is all about going to SMB, small and medium-sized businesses like John does with manufacturing, or enterprise, which maybe you do as well, John. But so what I'm saying is, I think it's actually still early days for these tools like WordPress, where, yeah, like all the like startups who like to, you know, take the power and get things going in their own way, and perhaps take some more risks, and they're okay with change and whatever. But the whole mainstream, I think, is coming, and they behave very differently. So there's still a lot of people, small and medium-sized businesses, as well as enterprise companies, that are still back in the past with the old school website that was built without a CMS. So while we're forging ahead, like we're way past like WordPress and CMS, and like we're doing it Lifter, we're building applications on top of it. The small and medium-sized business and enterprise are still catching up. And I think that that's why some of these numbers are a little funny, and why so many people have no content management system, because they still haven't gone mainstream yet.
Yeah, that's the kind of impression I was getting from it, and I thought, can't be right, can't be. But I think you do end up in a bubble. What do you reckon, John? What did you reckon about this?
Well, it's like Chris said, no one's from the old school, because the web on a whole is barely even 20 years old, to paraphrase a great person. But what's interesting to me is there's only 4 CMSs that have above 1% market share: WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, and Magento. And Shopify is looks like they're almost at 1%. Blogger looks like they're going downhill at this point. Blogspot, RIP, but they're below 1. And Squarespace seems to be upticking. But like Wix, you would think from all the YouTube ads from YouTube creators that are selling their souls to Wix, saying how great it is, it's only got like 0.5% of the market. Weebly's got like 0.2%. I mean, it's incredible when you look at the actual volume. What I'm looking at, though, is the trends, the like longer term trends. WordPress has been the CMS that is very clearly jumped to the top of the field, and they've had steady growth even over the last couple of years. When you think the market is saturated, they're still growing. Joomla seems to be going down. Drupal's, but you know, Shopify and Squarespace seem to be the ones that, though they're still, you know, not that much of the market, they're actually growing steadily, and a lot of the other ones are flat. So, yeah.
And what do you think leads to growth, and what leads to flatness?
I would say what leads to flatness is lack of innovation. In WordPress, for all the things that all the criticisms that you can levy against WordPress, it has definitely tried to innovate at every turn. What leads to growth, I think, is Matt Medeiros wrote about this in the blue collar WordPress professional, and you know, the 250,000 websites that they've helped put out. You need agencies and web professionals to be pushing a platform. I think more than anything else, that's what's going to lead to growth. So the first sale is always to the person who's going to be building your website. And if they are sold on it, then they will evangelize for you. You know, so that's really what I think leads to growth.
I'm going to have to try and get Matt on the show maybe in March on the round table, see if he's up for it. He's a friend. I consider him a friend of the show. He's a great guy. And I think if we had a chat with him. So we got somebody, got a new person attending.
Oh, Adam.
Yeah. Didn't notice.
Bring him in.
Yeah, bring him in. There we are. He's come on. So, Adam, we were discussing a report about the trends in the percentage of the market that's controlled by WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, other things. He's from Chris. Everyone, hang on, he's muted. What's this about? You're muted, are you? Oops. So unmute you. Oh, there you are.
Am I muted now?
No, you're not now. So we were discussing the statistics that like Squarespace and Shopify are up a bit. There is a slight trend, but it's still an enormous majority of sites that have no content management system at all, almost 50%. I was really surprised. Are you that surprised?
Well, you know, it's also kind of likened to the whole I'm a web developer, I can't find any clients, yet if you just walk down a street of businesses, half of them don't have a website, the other half it sucks, and the other half it's this like simple little HTML thing they got 10 years ago from their nephew or something like that. None of this stuff actually surprises me that there is massive growth ahead. Of course, market share numbers, they're always going up and down, but the amount of people using, it's just the world is ready for domination there. I mean, such a small fraction of businesses and people. Think about it. Everybody, think about it like this. And we're all old enough here on this panel to remember the days before a cell phone, right? It's just kind of like that with a website where everybody will need a website at a certain point, just like cell phones. And it's almost unimaginable. Everybody has a personal website. Everybody has a business website. It's unimaginable right now, but I guarantee you when cell phones came out, everyone having a cell phone or two cell phones and kids having cell phones was completely unimaginable. Things change over time, and that's why there's just so much opportunity out there for people to start going into one of these CMSs, and you're going to see it being just the big guys.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, I think reflecting, it is kind of why people resist having a website. Well, in a way, I can understand why, because if you're not really going to have a really good looking one and then have a strategy about how you're going to get traffic, what you're going to keep putting on the website, in some ways it might be best not to do it. I don't know. I also don't know how much this attitude that, well, we don't need a website because we use Facebook. What do you think of that, Chris? Do you think that's something that's in the mind of a lot of small business? I've noticed that, which I think is so dangerous. Absolute, horrendous idea. But I think there's a lot of small businesses that say, well, our online platform is Facebook.
I think it's just a literacy issue. I mean, in the same way, we were talking about the printing press earlier, and then people needed to learn how to read, and before it became a dominant thing. Modern online marketing and having an online presence, it's still very immature for some people, or almost an illiteracy issue, or perhaps having some failed perceptions of like, oh, well, I like Facebook. I guess I follow Facebook pages and groups. That's all I need. There's just a lot of assumptions wrapped up into that. So I think it's really just a literacy issue. And if we go outside of the digital entrepreneur, startup, techie, web kind of bubble, a lot of people they're just not as literate. So we have a knowledge gap here.
And don't get me wrong, I use Facebook quite extensively, but on the other hand, I totally agree with what John said. Use it for what it is, but don't mislead yourself. What do you reckon, John? Do you think I might have something there that a lot of businesses kind of look at Facebook as their web presence, which is not a great, totally is not a great idea, is it, John?
I'm going to point something out too. Like very recently, Rebecca Gill did a podcast episode all about this, like using, and basically it was saying that, you shouldn't be using a Facebook page for your, base operations. You can't use a Facebook page as your website. And my position is this. If a business, small business, because it's never going to be a big business, wants to use a Facebook page for their, website, their de facto website, go ahead. I'm not here to convert you. If you really believe that that a Facebook page is an appropriate replacement for a website, then more power to you. You will take your lumps and you'll learn. But I'm not trying to convert those people. That's my feeling on it. If and nothing against this, because I know a lot of people that start their entrepreneurial journey this way, but if you have an Etsy shop or something like that and you want to have a Facebook page but not a website, great. But I mean, honestly, it's like Chris said, mature businesses know that they need a website, or otherwise they're not going to be taken seriously. Simple as that. So,
yeah, I think I might be on something there. What do you reckon, Adam?
I absolutely think that, but it's interesting because you always want to control your own way you are shown on the internet. If you have it be a Facebook page or something like that, people can leave bad reviews there. And why are you going to, it's like, would you put a bad review of your business or something like that on your website? No, you have no control on Facebook or anything like that on certain aspects of it. So I know for me, WP Crafter, I've got like 73 reviews, and one guy put a 1-star and didn't write anything there. And I don't tell people to go there, even though it's all good. I don't tell people to go to my Facebook page. Anyways.
No, Zuckerberg's got enough money, really, hasn't he? He's roughing it, isn't he? He's busy anyway. He's dealing with all those Russians, isn't he? Right. God, so I've upset Google. Now I'm on to Facebook. There's no hope for me, panel, is there? I'm going to be marked for execution very soon, aren't I? On to the last story. Yeah, maybe I should have threw this one in. Oh, well, I think it's worth a discussion still. 13 performance-boosting site speed tips for WordPress. That's not a link bait title, is it? From Talk. Adam's already nodding his head at me. But it's it's an ongoing discussion with my client base, with my little company. Performance. Anybody want to start this off? What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think this is a good article for a mature business who has an online presence that's looking to really optimize speed. However, I think there's a bigger opportunity just for the general public who has websites to do a few things well, like not uploading giant images, having adequate hosting, which can help a lot with speed, and doing some basic caching. That'll help like 90% of the issues out there. A lot of times people are under-hosted or accidentally putting massive files on their website that really slows things down.
Yeah, and I also think, looking at, just really thinking about the theme you're selecting. If you're going to go down the WordPress route and you're going to get a theme, just trying to find out something about it and about the person and their background who made it or something. What do you reckon, John? What do you reckon?
Can I just add one more thing? I just wanted to spotlight Sujay Pawar over with the Astra theme. When I saw that he was taking a stand on speed for that theme, Astra, I thought, oh wow, that's cool. That's a much needed, unique angle. It does a lot of other things very well, but I just thought it was really cool to see that leadership coming out of the theme community.
Yeah, before I go to John, both Chris and Adam, you seem to really like the Astra. Why do you like it so much, Adam?
Yeah, well, actually, for anyone wondering, that is the theme that I used the theme before it was even available. I was beta testing it, and a lot of my ideas kind of went into it. And every line of code in this theme is carefully and methodically weighed. Should it be in there or should it not be in there? Or what's the most optimal way of doing this? And if you do just even the most basic speed tests with this theme, and it's free, guys, that's a crazy thing. If you just do some speed test comparisons between the Astra theme and other themes that you might think are fast, or some that you definitely know aren't fast, you're going to be astonished by how modern the coding standards are and the coding methods are that have gone into this. It's just an amazing theme. And then they even have a pro package that can allow you to do things with it that other paid themes don't even allow you to do. There's a lot of great developer specific stuff in there. And also something that's really neat that's in there, it supports Lifter LMS. That's Chris's plugin out of the box. It's going to provide styling for that out of the box in the free version. It's a fantastic theme. But on this topic of speed, I think it's just a combo of problems, right? WordPress, you might think it's been around a long time, but really in the lifespan that WordPress is going to have, it's really just an infant. And so a lot of themes have been coded, they're coding mess disasters, and so that's part of the problem. Web hosts were ill prepared to support WordPress at the volume of which they do. Most web hosting companies, 70% of their business is WordPress, and they're just not set up properly because we're in that infantile stage of WordPress and push. What's that?
I know a hosting company that's capable of that, and what's it called? Kinster. I think it's called Kinster, actually. But actually,
what needs to happen though is, so they're ahead of the game, right? But more web hosting companies probably need to become like a Kinsta. So over time, squeeze out the HostGators and all the Endurance International group type of hosting companies that give WordPress a bad name. But you do have some good guys like SiteGround. They try to do innovations and they try to optimize their stack for it. So I really think most of these speed problems are because hosts need to catch up and people need to start swapping out their themes for better coded themes and be careful about what plugins they put in. These are what are the problems. A user shouldn't have to think, I have to optimize this image. The host should say, it's in my best interest to optimize that image for them, so I'm going to do it automatically. This is kind of the evolution that needs to happen, and it will probably happen over the next few years.
Yeah, well, also, I think, if you've got a certain business model at a certain price point and it's been successful and you can still market it to slightly not naive, I don't know what the right word be, but unknowing large market. If your price, your profit structure is set up in that way, it's very hard, and you got a lot of success with it. It's very hard to move the ship, even though, can you see where I'm coming from, Chris?
I can't see where you're coming from. And this goes back to our earlier conversation around, and I love Adam's point about these images should be optimized for you. A lot of the tips and tricks in this article are for web people, techies. Reading this article would overwhelm the average website owner, and it's going to be all techno babble.
Yeah, but Chris, I know an excellent boutique service company that can help her with that.
Absolutely. WP-Tonic, right?
Yeah, they've got some crazy English guy that actually talks to his clients regularly. That's why it's a boutique, because we actually talk to our clients over Zoom. They actually know me, Chris. The customer wants a fast site. They just need an agency like yours and a hosting company that handles it for them. Exactly. They got better things to concentrate on, haven't they, Adam? Like getting visitors and actually getting them to do something.
Or adding some content to their website. It's the sad thing about the current state of some WordPress related stuff is that to really optimize it, it's kind of like you're laying out landmines that you're accidentally going to step into in the future. You know what I mean? This happens to me, right? do some kind of an update, and then I'll look at the front end of my website, and then bam, something doesn't work. And now I've got to go and disable everything and enable it one by one to figure out what the heck is causing the problem. So, you know, all these problems are eventually just need to be handled by a web host. And you know.
Yeah. And to finish off, I think WordPress has got a bit of bad rap for understandable reasons. But on the other hand, when, you know, because you can end up with a kind of mess, you know, well, a lot of the times you do. But on the other hand, the kind of functionality that the power, the functionality, the flexibility that you can get with the WordPress platform, I'm talking about WordPress.org here, folks, is just breathtaking at, you know, at a price point that a few years ago could not even be considered. And that's what's led to the tremendous growth of WordPress. But all that flexibility and power, plugins, themes, blah, 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 there's a consequence, and that consequence tends to end up being on the speed front. What do you reckon, John? Do you reckon that I'm right about that, or was I waffling?
No, you're not waffling. I think it's some really good points that Adam and Chris are making. And in this article, I mean, really, like, a lot of your speed problems are going to be by getting decent hosting and getting a decent theme. And I would say that, you know, for the people that are tempted to do it yourself and you want to, you know, go to ThemeForest and buy something and just do it yourself because you don't have the budget, I would say invest in hiring someone to consult with you and at least, like, tell you what hosting to get, what theme to get, what plugins you're going to need. And, you know, even if your budget is small, do those things because it's going to pay off. Because a lot of what happens is you'll see people go and get on their local ISP that's been around since 1995, and they're not set up, they're not optimized for WordPress. They're running like PHP, like 5.1. And it's just, you're going to have a bad time. Get on a good host, have someone point out a good theme. Astra's a good theme. You know, don't buy one of these bloated Swiss Army knife themes. You know, have somebody, you know, consult with you, like what plugins you should get and how you should, you know, set that up. Have somebody like Jonathan, you know, set up your site for speed. It'll make a big difference, you know, even if you have a limited budget. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm still, and it's like I'm kind of hitting it's a bit of a dead dog, but I still feel sorry for the average person that just wants to get a site up, and I just don't feel. I do understand why they end up on ThemeForest, why they go down that route, because I just don't think WordPress and WordPress.org has given enough advice and enough guidance without it becoming, you know, a corruption kind of cesspit. There are methodologies where they could do a better job of guiding users to quality themes without it becoming a nightmare, I feel. But it's it doesn't seem to be that attitude isn't getting a very good reception, really. But I just feel the whole thing could be done much better. But there we go. I think we're going to wrap it up now. I've really enjoyed the discussion again. I think we really covered some territory in this show today. I'll let the panel. So, Chris, how can people find out more about you, Chris?
You can find out more about me at Lifter LMS, which is a WordPress-based learning management system, lifterlms.com. I also have a podcast for course creators called LMS Cast, and I am at Chris Badgett on Twitter.
Thank you for your contribution, Chris. I think some of the things you said in this episode are so insightful. Thank you for joining us so much. Adam, how can people find out about you?
Well, first I want to say why I was so late today. I know we're we're wrapping things up, but I was doing a live stream on my Facebook group, a live stream on my YouTube channel, which you should check out, by the way, youtube.com/WPCrafter. I published live a 4.5-hour tutorial. I clicked publish live for everyone, and it will teach anyone how to make an e-commerce based website, full training on WooCommerce, everything. I have some interesting contests going on with that. Next week, I'm going to have my video on how to create an online course website, and that's going to be featuring Chris's product.
Are you going to be joining
awesome.
us, though? Are you going to be joining us?
No, I will. I got bags under my eyes because I was up editing this epic tutorial yesterday, and I just had to do it today. Just sometimes in life, you just have to do it. Just get it done. Stop making the excuses. Get it done.
Just get it done.
It's like that movie Waterboy, the guy that appears in all the Adam Sandler videos. You can do it.
You got to do it. You're just going to do it. Oh, there we are. John, look, how can people find out more about you, John?
You can find me at my website, which is lockdowndesign.com.
And when are you going to do these SEO, this joint thing with Adam then? When's that coming up?
Whenever Adam gives me the word, we're going to unleash our knowledge on the world. So there you go.
Oh, God, what's that? I'm gonna you have to tell me.
A lot of great SEO stuff is coming on the YouTube channel there with John. I just had to get this WooCommerce tutorial out of the way. And then I've got to get that online course tutorial out of the way. And then it's all SEO all the time, baby.
There we go. And if you want to find out more about WP-Tonic, go to the WP-Tonic website. We've got a load of new articles, published one article and another one coming up this Saturday on learning management systems. We're going to be publishing at least 3 to 4 articles per month in the coming months about how to set up a learning management system and every aspect of it. And I will be doing some training videos around that subject in increasing amounts in the coming months. So, but also join our podcasts, and especially we've had some great interviews on our Wednesday show and our round tables. I've just totally enjoyed them this month. So we'll see you next week, folks, for another WP-Tonic round table show. Bye, folks. Yes.